Hello and welcome to episode 203 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago, and with me on the line from Denver, Colorado, it's the one and only Shane Beeps.
Stanislav, my friend, happy Hanukkah?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Hanukkah time?
Yeah, night 2. We were recording this on Monday, second night of Hanukkah. One of the good nights, I say.
Yeah, I mean...
Can you rank the nights for us, please?
4 is definitely the best.
Okay.
What happens on 4?
You party.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Do you party on 2 as well?
Yeah, oh, yeah. No. It's 7. It's 8 nights of partying.
Party as a verb.
Yes. 4 is really good. I'm a big fan of 6. I think 2 is a sleeper. 1 is probably the chillest. 7 is fine.
Okay.
It's 5. You really don't want to mess with night 5 of Hanukkah.
You don't mess with 5, and on 8, is 8 a sleeve, believer, or heave?
5 is a believe minus. 8 is a sleeve minus.
Okay.
It's the saddest night because that's when the festival comes to a close.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to experience the festival of Hanukkah, and I've got to wait. I got to wait like 5 days before I get to go over to my mother-in-law's house and have some lasagna.
Traditional Christmas lasagna.
I mean, I'm making it, so I get to make what I want. I want to make lasagna.
Nice.
What are you, Garfield?
What are they going to have, like my vegetarian roast thing from Gardein?
Mm-hmm.
Gardein, get at us, by the way. I eat your products.
I'm making short rib.
Who are you? Are you the Godfather of Dave Harburger?
I am. I'm the godfather of meats this episode. Holiday meats.
Now, isn't it true that short rib is what they used to call you in band practice?
Yes, it's true. They call me the gnome, actually, if you must know. That hasn't changed much.
All right. On this week's show, we are kicking off with a very important breakdown. It's a big podcast-altering announcement breakdown. Huge news is coming in 2023. Do not skip it. It's exciting, but you're going to want to hear it to keep up with the latest and greatest Dive Down podcast.
All the tea from the Dive Down.
Yeah, some fresh tea is a brewing. But then we've got a Dive Down section, and we're diving into our 2022 year-end review, because this is actually our final episode of the year. So we're going to look back on the decks we loved, the cards we lost, and the sleeves we bought along the way.
We're just having fun this week. Other than the life-altering announcement that's coming up in a couple of minutes, we're having fun after that. So
I've been looking forward to this one.
Yep. It's always good. We have no notes, to be clear. We usually have 20 pages of notes for this episode. We only have 7 or so, and most of them are just our names in bullet form on the lists over and over again.
Yep.
So
It's my favorite kind of notes.
all coming off the dome here for the last episode of 2022.
Yes, and as we're going off the dome, let's do the last housekeeping of 2022. No specific shout-outs this week, but there are more shout-outs to come in the future because I have a feeling people are going to sign up for our Patreon. Maybe before the end of this year, certainly at some point next year. And they can do that over at patreon.com/thedivedown. Get into our Discord, get on our swag list. And it's probably the best way to support our show.
Oh, most certainly.
Keep the lights on, keeps our editor happy, the money that we've embezzled.
I guess the most direct way would be like, Stanislav, I see you at the game store. Here's $20. Keep the podcast going. But that's much more harder to maintain than the Patreon.
In that scenario, there's no technocrats getting their beaks wet on that money. That is just you giving Stan $20 to buy a hot dog.
One of those new Wagyu beef hot dogs that they have at the hardware store.
For $20? You aren't kidding.
I mean, it's Japanese beef.
The Home Depot?
Yeah, the Home Depot.
They got the Wagyu now?
The Home Depot hot dog stand has Wagyu beef in Chicago.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's a hot dog. It is a real hot dog meta.
That's right.
All right. But if you do want to support us in the more indirect ways, and you do want to play Magic online, you can use sign-up code TheDiveDown10 on manatraders.com, the service we have used for 4 years-ish now, or longer if you're Dave Harburger. And manatraders.com, sign-up code TheDiveDown10 gets you 10% off your first 2 months of online rental service. We are also, of course, brought to you by Barrister & Mann. Barrister & Mann is where we get lots of grooming products and soap products for you, your friends, your family, all those kind of things. If you use Code the DiveDown15 gets you 15% off your first order. And of course, you know that we've talked a lot about Nerd Rage Gaming this past year. We are a big fan of their series. We attended some of their series events. If you want to get some paper cards over at Nerd Rage Gaming, you can use the code DIVE8 for 8% off of your order of cards there. So there it is. There's housekeeping.
And with that,
Should we do this breakdown? This is a breakdown that I have been nervously anticipating since August, since I was recording on the side of a road in northern Wisconsin.
have we been hiding this from everybody for that long, since August?
That long?
We've been hiding a big announcement. It's not too crazy. Don't worry. Be happy, because in about 2 weeks, in early January, I, Stanislav, am moving from Chicago to England.
A nation breathes a sigh of relief. I'm not going to say which one.
London, England. Although you're not
He's
going
not
to be
moving
in
to
London.
London.
But...
Now I'm moving to London. I'm
know.
actually moving to Manchester in northern England.
Northern England Dive Down Nation members, get at us. Sponsor our podcast.
Seriously, I look forward to meeting them. But it's true, I've been working on this since August, basically, and it's actually funny to make this announcement today, because today's the day my wife and I bought our plane tickets for the three of us to actually get over there. We're flying through Paris, so that's going to be fun.
Interesting. How long are you staying in Paris?
Only an hour or so, and that's all the time I want to spend in Paris, one of my least favorite towns.
What?
I've never been.
Come on.
I don't like Paris. It's dirty.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's like
Come
New York
on.
City dirty.
Oh, wow. So you're one of those people who's just like, oh, the city is dirty, therefore I don't like it.
It's dirty, and the infrastructure is unmanageable because it's an onion. It was built before they invented grids.
Oh, okay. Onions, yeah.
Unlike Manchester.
I've heard that they're a bad city. But
Pretty grid-like,
yeah.
I will say. But yeah, no, this is not a bit. I'm moving to Manchester in January. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to move to Europe, and after working on it for some time, I got a job, and that's it. New life for Stan incoming.
I mean, I don't want to correct you, but that's not Europe anymore. Am I right?
It's not the Union, but there's a lot of
There you go.
European countries that are not members of the Union.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Well, this is exciting. This has been something that we have been very hyped for you about. It's going to be an awesome change for you and your family. Very hyped for you, Stanislav. More importantly, however, what does this mean for us?
Well, number one, it means I have no more friends in Chicago. I just want to be really clear that Shane left 4 years ago, or 6 years ago, maybe.
5 years almost, my friend.
Yeah, so Shane had been gone for a little bit, and then we started this podcast to stay connected. We brought Stan into this, Shane and Stan kind of started the show, and then I said, I'll be on it sometimes. And then,
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes turned
And
into all the
your
times.
wife is very happy.
Yeah, it's great. That decision has turned out to be great. But now, there's nobody left. There's nobody left. It's just me.
Yeah, Dave, maybe it's time to look in the mirror and ask why everyone's leaving you.
I've been asking myself that my entire life.
I'm looking at the Dave in the mirror. He's saying I am very great.
So, astute listeners will probably recognize that the United States and England are in different time zones.
Yes.
And depending on where you are in the US, it's anywhere from 5 to 8 hours ahead.
Yep.
So, how are we going to manage time zones, you guys?
Well, the truth is we don't really know.
Yeah, we don't really know. That's what I was going to say. Is we have no definitive answers.
Yeah, the definitive answer is I'm not quitting the show. At least not voluntarily. And I don't think that's going to happen, though I am going to take a break for maybe as much as a month just to get settled and fully relocated.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, your performance review is coming up when you come back too, so we'll be talking about things there. See if you have to go on a plan or not. But
Yeah, I'm gonna get in that PIP.
My first raise in 4 years is coming, I'm sure.
I wouldn't hold your breath. I heard the exchange rate's really good between dollars and pounds right now, though, so we should be flush when we move you over there.
That's right.
So I'm gonna say what I think it will happen, right? And what I think will happen is more of a rotational element. And when I mean rotation, I don't even really mean who's on the show that week. I think it kind of might be who's recording together, maybe working on sort of more independent segments or more regular guest segments where it's like, hey, Shane's going to do the breakdown this week and Stan and Dave are going to find some time to do the dive down. Or, we have an interview with someone that's topical, that's done independently, and then two other people do something else. So I think it will be something where it's experimental. It is something we're going to try some new types of content potentially. Really, what I think we all care about is doing stuff that, one, we enjoy doing, and two, we think that the casual spikes out there in the Dive Down Nation will enjoy listening to.
Can I just add a third thing to that list? Just to be honest, I think we all really care about doing something together, like
Yes.
in some form or another, like continuing the collaboration as best we can.
Yes.
I speaking for myself, done a lot of projects with a lot of people in my life. This has been one of the most fulfilling creative projects I've had in my life, my career, like whatever. It's been an important part of a lot of different aspects of my life, but it's been great collaborating with the two of you on this. And I don't think that any of us want to lose that. We just have to evolve, right, to fit our lives into this crazy show that we've been doing for 4 years.
Yeah, I think Shane put it really well, which is it'll probably be a little bit experimental at first, and then we'll get into whatever the new groove is, and the show will go on in a slightly different version than what it is today, but I think it'll be more similar than it is different, since, how much can you really innovate a Magic the Gathering podcast?
Oh, we have ideas. We talk about it almost every week.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, most importantly, I don't think it's going to be something that people truly notice is drastically different. And it gives us a reason to try to do things that are potentially, different, or things that might have been, we had no reason to do in the past. And now we will. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to blowing up our schedule necessarily, but I am looking forward to the opportunities that this does provide all of us. And really the opportunity it provides you, Stan, and your family to, I hope, a better life.
Yeah, I'm counting on it. I'm looking forward to some stuff. I'm looking forward to saying words like quid and chippies, and I'm looking forward to driving on the wrong side of the road. It is objectively the wrong side of the road. Just so we're clear on that.
It's definitely it's less common than the right side of the road.
That's right.
How many months until you have an accent, do you think?
I've been practicing. I've been practicing for 34 years, Dave.
Really? 34?
I got a bit of an accent already, don't I?
Yeah,
Perfect.
you just have to
Paul
say,
McCartney, is that
isn't
you?
it, at the end of things more often. Isn't it?
Yeah. I've been talking with a lot of Mancunians, people from Manchester called Mancunians, and I will say they have a unique accent. It sounds like they have a mouthful of marbles. It can be a little hard for me to understand.
I'm sure your new neighbors are going to appreciate that concept.
It's my favorite rugby team, the Mancunian Marbles. They're amazing.
Well, Stanislav, best of luck to you,
Yeah.
more importantly than us.
Cheers, mates. All right, with all that out of the way, let's dive into our 2020 year-end review. 2022, was it a good year or was it an average year? How much money did you guys make this year? Let's start with capital gains.
Recap of the year of Magic, however, not our year.
Let's just recap other things. Netflix. Who's got a Netflix list to share?
Man,
Morbius.
I can recommend Columbo episodes, season 1, episodes 1 and 2. Season
on Netflix
3. No, it's on Peacock.
No, Peacock, yeah.
I was watching it on Freevee for a while, and then Adrian was like, we got Peacock now. And I was like, oh, cool. She went to bed one night. I was like, I'm going to see what kind of content is on Peacock. Let's find something new to watch on Peacock. And I was looking through the homepage, and it was just like, oh, there's Columbo. I guess I'm watching Columbo now. That's it.
Dave, can we hipster cable that Peacock? Are you full on family accounts yet?
It is not our account, so I can't really share it. Second generation.
You're already sharing. It's pre-shared. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the best podcast we've ever done. This is actually the podcast I've always wanted to do. Like, if any changes coming next year, it's less magic, more stream talk.
Well, last week we got some noise in the Discord because we spent 7 minutes talking about grocery stores in the western suburbs of Chicago. And I said, we're going to make the show shorter, but we're going to have more of the stuff that people really care about. And that's where to get the good frozen foods in Oak Park or River Forest or Galewood, depending.
Right.
All right. Well, let's I think last year's we've done kind of like longer recaps of like things that happen in certain dates. And let's just hit the big things that happened this year. We lost Luris. Was that March of 2022?
It was.
We lost Yorion.
So I would say that as long as we're going through a recap of Magic in this year, the banning of Luris and Yorion were the biggest game-changing events of the year. I would even say that they probably did more to impact quality of life and quality of games than any set or new cards did.
I mean, certainly as far as Modern goes, that's true. And in the case of Luris, it definitely affected Pioneer the same way. I mean, I had that on my list of my most exciting memory of the year, in the sense that, yeah, it was great to see you guys and go to big events a couple of times this year and meet members of the Dive Down Nation for the first time, having not really traveled for that before when we went to Dallas and we went to Atlanta recently. But seeing Yorion finally say bye-bye was hugely exciting for me.
And interestingly, like I think we kind of initially were like, does this really affect kind of the 4-color control deck that was, so prevalent and so popular? And I think after some early performances where the deck has hung around, I think it's slowly become apparent that it doesn't have what it takes to still really hang.
Kind of disagree. I mean, if you look at our energy breakdown from last week, the deck had a 65% win rate across the 4 or 5 pilots that took it to the event. It's not as widely played, but the people who play it, the true heads, as they say, they seem to be doing okay with it still.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what really impacts the game, right? Is what people are playing, what we're seeing at the tables across from us, how that impacts the meta, the matchups, what other people are bringing, how the games play out, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of still think that there's room to grow for that archetype. And we're seeing Respect the Cat do interesting things with Karuga. They actually made the finals of the Sunday Modern Challenge with 4-color Karuga control. So, there's still some devoted fans of the archetype demonstrating that Risen Reef plus Evoke Elementals plus Omnath is a deck.
Yeah, and it's even better when you can draw 5 cards on turn 7.
Exactly. But we can't do that anymore.
The last thing I would say about this is Mark Rosewater's mechanics article came out today, his Storm Scale article, for some reason, rating the mechanics from what arbitrary endpoints. It was like rating the mechanics of 2019 and 2020 and 2020. I don't know why that launched today. However,
content, baby.
There was a paragraph about what people thought about Companion, and he gave it a 9 on the old Storm Scale because he felt like there wasn't much design space left. People hated it, and it caused gameplay warping things. And he said, I should have given it a 10. And guess what? I think you should have given it a 10. Don't ever go back to Companions. Don't. Get rid of the other ones.
Mark, you wrote the article. You could have given it a 10. As you wrote the sentence that you should have just scrolled up.
Yeah.
Backspace, backspace, backspace.
1-0.
It's a little disheartening to hear that feedback from who I've been under the impression was the principal creative force behind the Companions. Like I thought that he had come out in a previous article and said that it was really his idea. And I think for a long time when we were, lamenting Luris's impact on the format, especially in those days, and how the common refrain was frequently like, are we really going to have to live with Luris forever? It was always, we should either ban Luris or print more Companions. And if the principal designer who has introduced Companions into the world is saying that he and the team can't come up with any more, it's just like, why did we do them in the first place if it was such a narrow space that you can't continue to innovate on?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about Companions a lot of times. I think it's great to see Mark, Mr. Rosewater, kind of look back with a certain amount of objectivity and really think about what that idea did to the game at a certain point in time. I think what generally happens is he designs mechanics that he thinks are fun, right? The design team comes up with things that are really flavorful, thematic, that make sense to them in the world of that. I don't think the world building on Ikoria was particularly resonant. So, why Companions fit there? Not totally sure I'm buying it as much. However, he said that the whole team together did kind of a bad job balancing them, and that they later were surprised at how hard it was to fill in an entire cycle of them, and that's why they wouldn't go on to make more. Now, you only have a certain amount of time to work on these sets, so if you ask, why did it end up in there at all? Well, they probably ran out of time and budget to be able to continue to iterate on the ideas in the set, and eventually you have to ship it. So I think I don't really want to discount them too much for trying new things. I think it's great when they try new things. I don't think it should take 2 years for us to go to almost 3 years. Ikoria came out almost 3 years ago at this point, for them to go, look, that turned out to be a pretty bad idea. We're probably never going to do it again. Just keep that in mind.
Well, they're gone now, Dave.
All right, that's enough about Companion. Shane,
Yeah.
what's next on your mind as far as what made up 2022?
I think the RCQs were like a huge shift to people's approach and mindset and engagement with the game. I think that, we had a lot of people going for the RCQs and their local game stores. We had a number of people qualify from the Dive Down Nation. We attended the RC in Atlanta at the DreamHack, and that was interesting and fun. And I think overall, it's not what competitive Magic used to be, but we know that that's not sustainable, and it's not really possible to pay Magic people as pros. But I do think it really engaged people in the game in a new competitive way, or a new old competitive way, and reinvigorated paper play in some way, shape, and form.
I think that's such a good point. I think for some people, this was their first taste of high-level competitive paper Magic. And for others who were playing before the pandemic, it was a refreshing reminder of just how fun Magic with stakes can be. And I know we even saw it like among our listeners, and just the impact on the Dive Down. The summer of the very first RCQ season, like, people were so engaged, and it was really exciting. And it was a really exciting thing to be a part of. And it was just a really welcome reminder of just some of the best parts, I think, of Magic, and especially the formats that we care about, which tend to skew more competitive than maybe, people who are a little bit more casual and motivated primarily by just like their F&M scene, taking things to the next level and having a light at the end of the tunnel of your competitive ambitions and playing on bigger stages for bigger stakes, I think is something that Magic offers that is why people think of it as one of the best games of all time.
Yeah, I think they did a great job of reconceiving of a competitive structure that would allow people, like you said, to transition from that F&M-esque level play to a bigger tournament, to an even bigger stage from that to the Pro Tour. A way to reinvigorate local Magic scenes by having RCQs, even if sometimes it just means a bunch of spikes or driving from a nearby town to come over and take over your store's RCQ. I think that that's something that people used to have a lot when we were doing, whether it was Pro Tour qualifiers or the PPTQ kind of thing that didn't quite work exactly the same way, but was still pretty fun. I mean, it's kind of cool to have these like satellite tournaments that feed into a bigger thing, kind of taken from the way that sometimes professional poker or tournament level poker works. I mean, the other thing I would say about this is that it really reinvigorated an entire format that we thought was dead. And I know that we have mixed people on the show have mixed feelings about Pioneers as if you look at us as a group.
Some people on the show.
Yeah,
but
Shane.
Last year, on this year-end wrap-up, we were talking about how disappointed we were that it seemed like Pioneer had been totally left for dead, and there was no support for whether that was Historic or Alchemy or whatever. What's it called? Explorer now on Arena. It's great that we got some clarity on March 31st that they cared about Pioneer. They were going to try to bring it back. They're using it as their main level, one of their main level competitive formats, and that they had some kind of roadmap for bringing Pioneer to Arena, however long that project's going to take, I guess. But, our Pioneer channel was dead on the Discord, and now people are always in there talking about it.
I will say, and I don't know if it's fair to draw a straight line from point A to point B, but I kind of feel like RCQ season, in motivating me to actually spend more time Magic Online and honing very specific skills for paper competitive play, was one of the principal reasons why I stopped playing Arena over the course of this year. And like, I will go months without turning on Arena, and will only sometimes dust it off just to like do a new draft of whatever the latest set is, just to see what that's like. But otherwise, some of the Arena formats not matching up with what I can do in paper has made that platform much less appealing for me, I think, as a player right now.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I haven't turned on Arena in at least 6 months myself. And But I think that I'm definitely keeping an eye on it, on what cards are getting spoiled or when getting added by, anthologies and all those kind of things. So I am ready for it to come back when it more closely reflects Pioneer. I think I will be ready to be there to play it again, but not before.
Yeah.
Speaking of another thing that reinvigorated Paper Magic was the continuation of Nerd Rage Gaming's series, the opens, the qualifiers. I don't remember all of the nouns that they use for their series events, but
Trials.
It was a strong year for Nerd Rage. Showdowns. We saw a lot of events. We covered a ton of the events. We worked with them to be their the official podcast of their series, so that we were always going to cover their events and break down what was going on. And I think that was an awesome thing for people, primarily in the Midwest. But I know that we had people from my area, like I know Cora and some of her friends traveled to a number of the Nerd Rage events, driving across the country. So these were things that people went to, like they wanted to be a part of the series and make a go for making a name in this up and coming series.
Yeah, I feel like in a big way, Nerd Rage kind of helped absorb some of the attention and excitement people used to have for the SCG circuit. And we saw a form of SCG continue to live on post-pandemic, but the SCG tour does not exist anymore. The Energy series does. And I think having coverage, having really talented players play at the highest stakes, even having like narratives that go along the year and across seasons and give you players to root for, made the Energy series sort of like the pinnacle of broadcasted Paper Magic of the year. And it being in the Midwest and so close to us, I think was a real gift for me, at least, this year.
Yeah, that's something that actually I didn't put on the notes in the kind of our overall recap section, but you're right, Stan, in that, the SCG series now is really kind of like a touring convention of Magic, to celebrate Magic, to meet with your friends, to go see artists, to participate in side events and drafts, and do kind of what you want to do, engage in Magic in that way. But yeah, the competitive edge of SCG no longer exists in that sense. And so that's been an interesting shift too, where we've seen, former competitive stalwarts like, CFB is no longer doing basically anything, I think. And SCG is now doing kind of the convention model. NRG is trying to, continue on kind of the SCG model. And now we have the RCQ and RC model being sort of the higher end or the most premier level of competitive Magic we have around the country.
Yeah, and then I think a couple other people have taken notice of what Energy has done this year, and I think they might be wading into it. Like we talked about some West Coast shop owners. I know that there's one in the Southeast in Tennessee, I believe, that runs some tournaments as well. So hopefully we'll have a couple of other regional tournament series pop up that we could potentially pay attention to in 2023.
Anything else you all think about kind of this overall year of Magic? Magic Online got transferred to Daybreak and a pretty clean transfer. We've seen some potential benefits of that, and a few bug issues, of course, along the way. But I think that I'm curious what Daybreak's going to do in 2023 and in the future with improving Magic Online, improving the way we get Magic Online data, the way we can engage with that system as well. And I'm hopeful because Magic Online is kind of the primary way I do play Magic right now, besides trying to get to some paper events a few times a month.
Yeah. Stan?
Yeah.
Do you have some memories of this year? What's your thought about this year?
What's your most favorite memory of the year, Stan? Let's get into our best of. Let's get into our award ceremony. I'm just going to cut to the chase. I'm going to take us in to our best of 2022. And let's just start big. It kind of keeps on what we've been talking about. What's your MTG experience of the year? And let's start with you, Stan, because Dave teed you up.
For me, grinding RCQs was a blast. Even though I had varying results. Sometimes I'd scrub out early. Other times I would put up a real fight. Just, driving to these random LGSs that I've never been in before, in towns that I've never visited before, in states that are, north of Chicago, but south of the upper peninsula of Michigan, Green Bay, Holla. That was really memorable. And I've never really done anything quite to that level pre-pandemic when I was playing paper events periodically. And with that was also just like discovering what my deck is right now. And that was just like the love affair I've had with rhinos for the better part of year and a half.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember some of the events early on that you did, and you were like, I'm not loving Murktide. And we were chatting in Discord, and we were kind of like, why don't you go back to rhinos? You seem to enjoy Crash Gate. And you were like, yeah, maybe I will. And then it was just like, from there, very deeply into it.
It's interesting with rhinos. Almost every paper event I do with rhinos, I do very well in. And the one exception was, this was actually last year in 2021 when Shane and I went to Vegas. I played rhinos in that event, and I did not do as well with it. And that was actually kind of a turning point for me, because that Vegas event in late 2021, early second half of 2021, was when I decided to get into coaching or finding a coach for myself. And that was something I did this year. And part of what made this year so memorable for me is learning how to keep improving as a player, thanks to some of the coaches that I've worked with. That, I think some of the leaps and bounds that I've accomplished competitively would not have been possible if I didn't have the support of like people like Dom and Pi and lately Arceus, Dota. Just elevating my play, improving my thinking constantly is helping me meet my MTG goals. So that's definitely been one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I mean, the results speak for themselves. The results are there. And, so I honestly wish that we were able to play more together, because I feel like I could pick up on and ask you kind of things that you're learning and why you're making certain plays and things like that. And so I definitely appreciate, as well, finding the love of rhinos has like been really important for me in my playing of Modern and my engagement with Modern, and the fact that like it's a good deck that I like playing and do well with is just like a nice combination of things where it's just like, it's probably like people who just played Jund like until it wasn't very good anymore, and just like something that they could just bring out of the deck box and enjoy and have fun with, but also probably do pretty well for a long number of years. And so I'm just going to ride out rhinos for a while until like maybe I just want to try something new. But I'm there with you. And broadly, I think it was my experience of the year was, probably DreamHack Atlanta, but that's sort of like just a stand-in for the times that we got to hang out with each other and go try to do some floor coverage and commentary on what was happening at the paper events that were coming back this year, and just to be able to talk to people who listen to the podcast and meet people who just came up to us and said, yeah, I really like what you're doing. I listen to you guys all the time and really appreciate you. And it's like, oh man, like people do actually listen to this podcast, and that's really fun to remember. It's been good to do that kind of stuff with you all, and also to, I think, for all of us, I think, to continue getting a little bit better at Magic and getting a little bit better at making the show. So that's really, I guess, a large way of saying it's just a combination of the entire year has been good.
What about you, Dave? What did 2022 mean for you?
We talked about my favorite moments.
Cards
honestly.
getting banned?
Yep, cards getting banned. Luris and Yorion getting banned were very exciting. One of them hurt me because I loved playing it. The other one made me very happy because I hated playing against it. I was really excited that Pioneer regained some relevance as it turned out, and so that's been fun. There's also been interesting things just with the show this year, like I talked about earlier, going out and meeting people. Stan, you mentioned here in the notes that, we had a preview card that was pretty cool that we got to do that at one point. Just all of that kind of stuff was interesting this year too. So it was a pretty good year for us overall, I think. Yeah,
I'd say so.
Next year we'll do some stuff from, the UK or Europe. Why not? Just fly over. Go see Stanislav. Find a Manchesterian recording studio.
Mancunian.
Maybe we can find the one where the Beatles first did together.
No, they were in Liverpool.
They were?
No, if anything, we would have to record where like Joy Division and Oasis made their first albums.
Oh, even better. Can we go to the Hacienda? Creation Records? I'm into it. 24-hour party people. We could talk to the Buzzcocks. All right. Let's get to what people really care about. We're going to talk about arbitrary lists of cards on this show. We are.
Yeah.
So let's start off with a banger. What's the best card that came out in 2022? Let's all put our nominees in, and then maybe we can vote together and pick one together, consensus-wise, that is the real card.
Because we got a lot of good cards, and I think we're primarily focused on Modern, but there were no non-standard sets this year that impacted Modern, so you could make some of these arguments for Pioneer and elsewhere too.
Stan, do you just want to read our list of nominees, and then we dither over them? Do you want to just go through them one at a time and give our pitches for them?
Pitch.
All right. Pitch. All right. Unlicensed Hearse, rather.
Unlicensed Hearst. So like one of the newspaper magnates.
I mean, this is funny because it's a card that I was like, nah, I don't think so. Just seems okay. And now it's just everywhere. It's just one of the most important sideboard cards in Modern and sideboard cards in Pioneer. Stan was right. Always listen to Stan.
Yeah.
Here's the numbers, though. It appears as a 2 of in 29% of the decks in Modern, according to Goldfish.
That can't be right.
Which I'm not always sure about that stat. It's in 39% of the decks in Pioneer, which I actually believe a little bit more, but only as a 2 of in each of those. The average copy is like 1.8 or something like that.
Yeah. It's a good card, Bront.
Interesting that it's just a 2 of, since you pair it, I guess, with other Graveyard Hate periodically, or just like other interaction for the decks where it's good. Which is like in Pioneer, you played against Phoenix. In Modern, you played against Murktide or Living End, occasional other strategies.
Next card, Ledger Shredder, also from Streets of New Capenna. Another card that we missed on the spoilers, or at least all of us missed this one, unlike only one of us getting Unlicensed Hearse. But Ledger Shredder turned out to be an amazing card. Huge hype. It was a $1 rare, and then it became a $20 rare in like 3 hours. Remember that?
The Aspiring Spike Bump.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, key card in a number of decks. Huge role player and just primary player in the formats. Leyline Binding, Stan, I feel like this is something we both love quite a bit.
Oh yeah, just an instant all-timer. I feel like something like Ledger Shredder or Unlicensed Hearst is seasonal, right? We could find an environment where that's not necessarily like the 2 drop to play, but Leyline Binding being this 1 mana removal against everything, any non-land basically, just feels like it's one of the best interactive spells in Modern, and it's going to take some crazy power creep to push that out of the format.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a card that requires so much deck building around it for people to so quickly just be like, yeah, fine, perfect, I love it.
I mean, that's Modern, though. Like this is not like a real deck building cost in Modern necessarily. In Pioneer, on the other hand, it doesn't appear in the top 50 cards on Goldfish, according to them, in overall cards played. So it's interesting that it's in close to 20% of decks in Modern, 17% of decks in Modern, and not in the top 50 in Pioneer. But at least this was a card that we all were like, this card's probably going to be good.
I think all Magic players saw that this card was going to be good. And the proof is in the pudding.
Hopefully. Maybe. How about a card that not many people saw was going to be good coming off the spoiler, and that is Fable of the Mirror Breaker from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. 30% of the decks in Pioneer, 16% of the decks in Modern. On average, it's almost a 4 of in the decks that it's played. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Make 2 creatures. Discard 2, draw 2. Other cool things.
Fable and Ledger Shredder, I actually think are kind of similar in a way, in that they have proven to be this really flexible, powerful glue support system that just ties the room together for so many decks in so many formats.
Yeah.
And they're both like kind of innocuous, but then once they're in play, you sort of see that their presence is immediately felt and how powerful their effect are, and like how they basically demand answers all the time.
All right, up next, let's talk about both of the good channel lands, and that's Boseiju Who Endures and Otawara Soaring City. These are just extremely popular across Modern. I think also in some Pioneer decks as well. Boseiju is just so cost efficient. Otawara, not quite as efficient, but just super flexible for getting you out of jams. They are as good as people expected them to be. They didn't, I think, blow up the format quite as much as people expected, but Boseiju is a real weapon in the meta, and Otawara is as well.
I do think Boseiju did a lot to like tamp down stuff like Charbelcher or other decks that rely on like one piece of artifact that you just can't have interaction for, that suddenly you can use over and over again with Wrenn and 6, or just run main without worrying too much about the downside. And then Otawara is kind of a little bit of like the Brazen Borrower effect, where it's like How good is a random bounce effect in your deck? Well, it's pretty good, and this one only costs you a land.
Yeah, I
amazing.
would actually put these cards almost in the same class as Leyline Binding, just because they're powerful spells attached to lands that are flexible to run, especially in Modern, where you can play more colors without being punished. That I see these cards sort of like sticking around for a while until they print better lands that, take up their slot. But it's hard to imagine like how you can print better lands that are as useful and interactive unless you can add like a land type to it so you can fetch for them too and send them to your hand or something.
Oh my God. The worst of all possible options. Yeah.
Dave, you have one more nominee.
I do have one more, and it's very specific. It's Sheoldred the Apocalypse from Dominaria United. Too slow for Modern, obviously. Did not get there, but it's in 20% of the decks in Pioneer, and it replaced a longtime staple in Kalidas. It's a pretty good card. It definitely freaked a lot of people out when it first came out, and I think it's a pretty emblematic card of the type of things that happened this year in Magic, at least. And it kind of reasserted the viability and interest of red-black midrange in Pioneer, and also gave us one of the best Twitter threads there has ever been on Magic.
Yes.
By the way.
All right, so let's cut to the chase. What's our card of the year? Do we have an agreed upon final card? We did not dither over this in our notes. We were going to do it live. Dave, what's your nominee?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's your final choice? Or what would you like to propose for card of the year?
I think if we're going to come together on something, I think that Fable of the Mirror Breaker has the most broad appeal. I see that it's Stan's pick as well, and I am okay with us saying that objectively that would be the card.
Yeah. My only other argument would be for like Boseiju. Simply because of the vast utility it presents. But yeah, I think Fable is a combination of all the factors that would go into a good card to choose for this, right? It's interesting, it's widely useful, it has a $5 token. It's got all the good stuff. It lets you do novel things, and so yeah, it's just a rad card. I think it's a perfectly good pick.
I also love that it just took so many people, ourselves included, by surprise. Calling Leyline or Boseiju the card of the year is the safe pick, but sort of acknowledging that Fable was a sleeper hit that has become so important for a lot of strategies, and you sort of just like see it as like this catch-all 3-drop that you can put into a deck if you need to fill out that spot on the curve, or if you need to like meet Karuga or Cascade restrictions. Fable sort of just like is a useful tool that you get to consider, and surprise it actually sees Modern play is I think it adds to its personality more than anything.
Absolutely. People have been asking for this card to get banned from Pioneer because they feel like it's so powerful in the format. I've seen people chatting about it. It's crazy, I think, to say that, but I do think it's the best card of the year. There it is. Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
Can we talk about just our personal favorite cards then? We don't need to go into all the dithering. Stan, what's your favorite card of the year? What's your favorite card to cast and play with?
Oh, that's Leyline Binding. You always feel good drawing a Leyline Binding. Or at least I do. You always find a home for Leyline Binding. If you need to hit an early Ragavan, fine. You don't lose mana. If you need to like deal with a Dryad or a Primeval Titan or an Emery, you can even hit Teferi. You can get to 4 mana, deal with Teferi, and then Cascade. It's so much easier than like waiting to get to 5 and doing a Brazen Power shenanigans. Just Leyline Binding makes me want to only ever play soupy 4 or 5 color decks forever.
Is it fair to say that you were a Leyline skeptic during spoiler time? I remember when we were talking about, hey, it's going to go into Rhinos, and you were like, why would I put this into Rhinos? Why would I ever want Rhinos to have this?
I absolutely was skeptical. And I think part of that was because at the time, I really believed in Rhinos being a Blood Moon deck and having that angle. And losing Blood Moon has been a big loss for Rhinos for me, frankly. But what I didn't really measure at the time was what adding Leyline would do for the deck. And it's like, you took a step back, but you actually got to take 2 steps forward too.
Yeah, it's just something that you have to you sacrifice sort of the free wins or the cheese wins, and you just get better interactive tools.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would agree. Leyline Binding's my favorite card to play. It's just so flexible, so useful. I'm fine contorting my deck to allow me to cast it, give me the opportunity to cast it.
Well, I'm going to go a different way here. My favorite card, I think, to play this year has been Ledger Shredder.
Yeah, very Dave card.
I love it. It's a blue flying bird replacing Stormwing Frenemy in my heart and on the battlefield. It rewards casting spells. In the immortal words of the other bird lawyer I know, I'll take the case.
Right on. Well, 2022 also, just the changes to the format, the decks that people created, the additions of new sets made some old cards a lot better. So let's talk about some cards from before 2022 that got a lot better this year. And I'll go through my nominees were Feign Death and Grief, because I don't think Grief would be mentioned in like, hey, this is a very good modern card. And I think this is Grief's year to shine and say, hey, everything you feared still exists. I'm still here. And Feign Death was its partner in crime in making a legitimate deck. Indomitable Creativity, a card from, is Aether Revolt? Yeah.
It's from Aether
Revolt. A card that
yeah.
people just slept on for years until it had a big breakout this season. And then also Underworld Breach, a card that I feel was largely slept on in Modern, and this year has made appearances in Prowess-style decks, in Grinding Breach combo, probably other places that I'm forgetting. But this is a card that has been waiting to be broken since its release, and I think we're getting to the point where we're sort of there.
Someone won a challenge this weekend with Underworld Breach in their Murktide deck.
Yeah, why not?
Murktide Breach.
Value, baby.
Put it into my veins. That's what I'm saying.
Buy your
kind of a non-bow with Murktide itself, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you use it to grow the Murktide after you get the dragon down?
Sure, why not? You can have giant ones. Yeah, why not both? Value engine late game also.
Cranial Plating and Archon Ravager weren't best friends, but they were in the same great deck.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that that's a correct thing to do. I just think that it's like everybody woke up in the last couple of months and was like, oh, we can play Breach. Number one, Grinding Breach is good. So we're going to play that a lot. And then, by the way, wow, this Underworld Breach card is just really powerful. What if we did it in other red decks that have spells?
We should. You know what, guys? Let's do it. Let's breach everything.
Breach it. The other cards that I had on my list, Graveyard Trespasser. Storm the Festival, which is a card that came out at the end of last year. So that's apparently I'm the pioneer guy on this podcast as well with my suggestions.
It's good to have some perspective.
And then Shane said Feign Death. Why not Undying Malice? Shane, also not from this year. Also in that deck. Also the same card. To me, this is just proof that any one CMC card that there's 8 of will eventually be a staple. Like, it doesn't matter. If there's 8 of them and it's one CMC, we're playing it. Am I right?
Why not?
Thanks. Electrostatic, get at me.
So, yeah, I mean, on that note, I present to you guys for consideration Malakir Rebirth.
Yeah, sure. That one sucks,
yeah, I guess
though.
so.
We don't talk about that card doesn't even get played anymore.
Hilarious jokes aside, I actually think one of the best cards, or one of the cards that saw the most improvement this year is Spell Pierce.
Yeah, this is like the
best it's ever been that I can recall. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I've been playing blue control ink decks for so long, and it was never really that good in blue-white control. It was never really that great even in like blue moon decks. But this low to the ground, like blue-red tempo strategies, and sometimes even like other blue controlling decks in the world of Ren and Sixes and Teferis and even Leyline Bindings, where everyone's just trying to do as much as possible on as little with as little mana as possible, made like Spell Pierce one of the strongest one-man interaction spells in the format.
I think it's true. Yeah, I think it's some of it's about the increasing mana efficiency of Modern, but there's been lots of times when Spell Pierce was fine and was a happy part of your suite, right? Your counter suite and the sideboard. This is one of the first times that I remember it being like, sure, I'm blue-red control, or tempo, whatever, and blue-red spells and counter spells, I'm going to play 3 Spell Pierce main in Murktide and just be happy with that, you know? Like that hasn't happened too many other times in Modern.
Yeah. Here's a couple other cards that I don't think anyone was talking about before this year. Orvar the Allform from Kaldheim as just like a surprisingly useful, not essential, but still fun and good sideboard plan against Archon of Cruelty, especially. And then my last mention for this category, Scion of Draco, which saw a brief spike. Now when Leyline Binding was printed and everyone was playing these 5-color decks that had Wooburg on turn 2, Scion of Draco seemed like a nice, cheap 2-mana 4/4 flyer that had some other upside that was almost never actually relevant. But it's still seeing play in these 5-color zoo decks that people are registering. And even though it didn't really stick around in Rhinos, I think the pairing of Leyline Binding plus Scion could be a package that people will continue to experiment with for as long as Leyline is good, ultimately.
All right, so what's our pick? The best pre-2022 card that is suddenly great.
I think, man, this is tough for me. I feel like it's either, for me, it's either between Indomitable Creativity, Underworld Breach, and Grief.
So all your nominees.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like if you all had done this list before I got my notes in, then you would have made those
I don't
picks.
think Grief makes the cut. I think Grief was good out of the gate. I think everyone knew that like the turn 1 Grief scam plan was going to be good. It just took us a while to figure out whether it was an Ephemerate deck or something else, and it just turned out to be something else, and that's fine. But like,
okay, I'm fine with that. I mean, Indomitable Creativity basically saw like no play until this year, so I think that's a stronger.
So that's the other thing. Like,
Well, wait. Well, we had Zach on, and we talked about Indomitable Creativity for a while, and his lists go all the way back to at least early last year.
Well, I mean,
if not
so
earlier.
Underworld Breach is also into 2021 as well. If you want to be really strict about it, but I feel like
here's why I like Breach of those 3 the most is because this was the year that everyone kind of woke up and was like, this card is insanely good, and why haven't we been playing more of it this whole time?
Yeah,
and also it got the pieces around it to create Grinding Breach to be like a legitimate deck, I think, as well. So,
well, what was the piece it got this year?
Ledger Shredder.
Oh, you're right. Well, it got Ledger
Shredder.
Yeah, Ledger Shredder. That's the big piece. Yes.
Yeah. So I actually, my vote in this bucket is pretty strongly towards Underworld Breach, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, best
Underworld Breach. You got our most improved.
Yeah, what we call the comeback player of the year, comeback card of the year award.
Yeah, comeback card of the year.
Underworld Breach. Ding.
Can we talk about some actual decks? The collection of cards. This year saw the introduction of some decks into formats that we like, and even in some cases decks that probably could have existed in a certain form before, but just like finally made their debut this year, perhaps because one new card brought the room together. So here's my nominees for best new decks from 2022. Domain Zoo. Thanks to Leyline Binding, Scion of Draco, Ragavan, I suppose. But Wild Nacatl Zoo decks were always just like tier 5. But finally, like, we're actually seeing it like appear in some modern challenges. It's in every deck dump. It steals games. Like the Shobi Brawler or whatever that card is called has 5 power and trample.
Man, you're talking way too much about this deck that is not gonna win this category. I tell you what, not if I'm on this podcast.
All right, here's another nominee for you then. How about Glimpse Combo?
Mm-hmm.
Is that all this year? Okay.
You know, Glimpse Combo I think it was possible last year, but I don't think people were really working on it, or at least not as notably as this year, when it just kind of like I'm pretty sure it was Donkin who put together the first Glimpse Combo brew and just sort of like proved to a lot of like combo players or people who wanted to cascade on their own terms that there's other ways to Shardless Agent into insane conditions that also lets you play Omnath and Colony Garden. All right, my final nominee for this section, Mono Black Coffers, which we had all the pieces except Invoke Despair. And then it was Invoke Despair coming out in Neon Dynasty that kind of like gave this Mono Black Coffers deck, you know, Coffers being printed in MH2, a actual like reasonable payoff to produce a lot of mana with your swamps and hopefully like annoy your opponents long enough to find a win condition.
All right. My nominees. 1 Modern, 2 Pioneer list. The first one is Rakdos Scam, a list that has gone from curiosity to tier 1 staple that people hate playing against in Modern. Is it safe to call this a 2022 deck? I think 100% so,
100% think it is.
Okay. Obzon Greasefang in Pioneer, featuring Greasefang Okiba Boss out of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, a deck that I do not like and do not like playing against, but must appreciate its sticking power and popularity. And then finally, Gruul Vehicles in Pioneer, which is a pretty rad deck that I think is up my alley, but also kind of just a great combination of various cards to be a not tier 1 but a real powerhouse in the meta. And I think it did win big events, so it's got some power there.
Totally agree. I have one deck that I would add to this list of nominees for all of us who we've not talked about, and that is Mono Blue Spirits.
Is that this year?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Certainly as far as it getting any kind of competitive relevance, the Mono Blue version is definitely this year.
I feel like we all know what the actual answer is for best new deck of 2022. Hold on. We do not have Indomitable Creativity on this list.
It's not new
because it's not
right.
new.
It's 2021. Yeah. Okay. That's why. Yeah. Right. We knew this. That's why I also don't have the Underworld Breach deck on this list as well. I'm gonna push hard for Scam.
Me too.
I think Scam is fine.
What would you want, Stan? Yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's the best new deck. It's the best performing new deck, I think.
Yeah, it's fine. I actually kind of love Greasefang as a new deck. Just because like it literally made an old card that saw 0 play really good just thanks to the printing of this one card, Greasefang, that like people are still they agree that Greasefang is a really good proactive strategy for Pioneer. They just haven't figured out the perfect way to build it. And we see all these iterations that kind of are okay, but Scam is a better deck, but Greasefang, I think, deserves like a very honorable mention.
For sure. I'm there with you. Yeah, Rakdos Scam, our best new deck of 2022. Let's take a quick break. Let's refill our water cups, head into the ad break, and then we will be back with the rest of our best of 2022s. So stay with us.
Guys, so last week we all got those awesome boxes from our friend Will over at Bear's Turn Man, and I got to try out a new soap that is an instant classic for me. I just loved it right out the box.
Which one?
Figaros.
What? Figaros?
Figaros. Rose. Well, guess it was just for me then.
Yeah, you're a special Stan.
I sure am. It was originally released as part of their Soft Heart series once upon a time, but Will describes Figaros as a refreshing, slightly fruity blend of green fig, rose, lemon, and driftwood. When I first smelled it, just the dry bar, I actually thought it was kind of seasonally appropriate. Like the fig and the driftwood had almost a Christmassy element to it, but it just was not overbearing at all. It was just the perfect little hint of fruitiness that I was really pleasantly surprised by, and I think a lot of people will be pleased with if they try it.
Did you put your fig out on the piece of driftwood for Santa yet?
Of course, except it's Hanukkah Harry. We do it for all 8 nights of Hanukkah Harry, but yes.
Oh, yeah. So the elf on the shelf, the fig on the driftwood.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That was a good song from Travis. So is this called, give me the name of this product. Is it called Figaro? Like as in the murder, like the Marriage of Figaro, like the opera? Or is it Figaros, like a joke about the Icelandic, like shoegaze band?
It's all one word, Fig a Rose.
Figaros. Oh, okay, Figaros. Yep, perfect.
I personally have been using a lot of the Taiga products. Like got the bar soap, I got the beard oil, and man, I love it. It's like this, like sort of calling it mentholated makes it sound like it's going to be too intense, but it's like this pine smell that also has like this super freshness to it, and I really like that. It's kind of like a nice contrast to the Seville beard oil that I've had for a long time. So rather than smell like kind of like the classic barbershop sort of, aroma of Seville. Get something more fresh and awesome. And I really do like the Taiga stuff a lot.
Taiga style.
If you want to get products like Figueros, like Taiga, like Atomic Holiday, if you want to get these new scents and old scents from Barrister and Mann, you can use the coupon code TheDiveDown15 for 15% off your first order. And let's Will know that you came because you listened to us, and we appreciate it.
We had best new deck. We close out on a banger. We're opening up segment 2 on a banger. What's the best deck of 2022? Stan, you go first this time. What's your list of nominees for best deck?
Yeah, I don't think there's one objective deck here. And that changed over the course of the year because of bannings. But if we're looking at today's format, I have 5 contenders. Is it Murktide has to be in the conversation for me. It's just been a steady hand forever. It ebbs and flows, but it just continues to win tournaments. I think Hammer is the same thing. A steady hand, ebbs and flows, survived a really big banning from Luris, but continues to put up a fight and put up really impressive results and high win rates in tournaments. For me, I'm a little biased, but I think the data backs it. 4-color Rhinos is awesome. I think it's just
when you say 4-color, you mean 5-color, right?
Yeah, but you're not casting any black spells really. You just happen to have black mana. But regardless of how many colors you put in there, like if you pay attention to modern results on Twitter, like I just can't help but ignore the fact that it keeps winning tournaments in Europe. It's the best deck in Europe. Just crushing the European scene.
You must be very excited about that.
I'm very excited about that. A lot of mirror matches.
You're going to be metagamed against.
Yeah, and like we see it do well online. We see it take down or top 8 tournaments stateside, of course. And I just think it's like the coolest thing to be doing with a fair strategy. I have 2 more recommendations. Scam. As you know, this new deck, we all knew that Grief and Fury and Dothy Voidwalker and Blood Moon and Ragavan were powerful cards. So let's just put them all in the same pile and add some feigned death effects because we have enough of them now. And finally, creativity. Now, creativity isn't a bit of a lull currently, but I don't think that's a permanent lull. I think it saw a big high in the Yorion era. It continued to perform well immediately after the Yorion ban. Some people were saying it's actually the best deck post-Yorion. Murktide was creeping up behind it, though, to say, I'm not so sure. And it definitely made top 8 one of the weekend challenges. You know, I think creativity is here to stay, and we can continue to see it evolve over time. Like, whether it's things like, what is it, Brotherhood's End? Is that the card? That's like this new discard outlet that's sort of making creativity players try out Jund and Mardu.
No, it's called Bitter Reunion.
Bitter Reunion. Sorry, all the flavor from Brothers War is hard to parse, but yes, Bitter Reunion's like introducing potential new versions of this deck, making it more of a persist strategy. And I think as other like good discard outlets or good interactive spells that don't compete with creatures and creativity targets emerge, I can see this deck and this card in particular continue to be really strong. So there's my 5 noms. Nom, nom, nom.
So Shane, any additional noms to that, or it looks like he covered you?
No, Stan's overlapped with mine. So what do you have additional ones, Dave?
I have 3 additional ones. I'm going to bring back Pioneer. I'm going to say Mono Green Devotion.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best decks of the year.
Ugh, yeah.
Rakdos mid, locked in the continual death dance with Mono Green Devotion of dominating, ending up as much as 30% of the meta between the two of them at different points in time in tournaments this year. And the last one that I would put on there, just because it's burning on the funeral pyre right now, I think that the best deck of the year for Modern is actually 4-color Yorion Control. So good, it got a card finally banned.
That is fair. So do you want to hear my hot take?
Yeah, I want your first vote.
I think the best deck overall of the year is Hammer.
Whoa.
It's the most consistent, most high winning percentage deck. It's always like 54 to like 58%. I think it's the best deck that not everyone is playing because they might not want to. It's just not their style. But I think it's the best deck.
Wow. Okay.
But I think that's what it is.
Maybe objectively, but not emotionally.
Well, emotionally, we have a question coming up for emotionally. Emotionally best deck is the next question. What do you think objectively the best deck is?
I actually would rather say it's Murktide.
I think it's the most popular deck.
That also does well. I think part of the problem is Murktide is harder to play than Hammer. And I think...
Ooh, wow, that is a take. That's a hot take for 2022.
It's so true, though. Play both. You'll see. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I've played both this year, and I'm not a good player, but I think Murktide's easier to play than Hammer.
No effing way. No way.
I think to win with Hammer, you have to do different things.
I think with Murktide, like, you have to know how to get the most value out of all of your cards that do just one thing, right? Like, you're playing you're junding people out with tons of one-on-one removal, and then you have to know when to, like, either turn the corner, present threats, hold up counterspells. You know, it's when you can actually, like, safely play an expressive iteration. I think all the cards are just, like, all the cards are useful in such different scenarios that playing Murktide effectively, like, requires a lot of practice and format knowledge. Whereas Hammer, you're kind of just like finding the path to execute a combo where you just go, here, I've laid down all of my pieces. I'm just going to win on the spot. It's Breach-like to some extent for me.
But I think Hammer is really, and this might be influenced by the fact that I've spent much of the weekend reading Will Kruger's Guide to the Deck. Check it out on Twitter, purchase it. There's really 3 different game plans in Hammer, and you have to figure out which game plan you're on, which game plan you want to be on, and how to get from one to the other, how to successfully execute it. Because there's Hammer Combo, and then there's Saga, and then there's also, am I going Stoneforge into Cauldron Complete for my deck? And also, what happens when I have to switch from one plan to the other?
Yeah, losing Luris made the deck become, I think, harder to play, but perhaps as equally rewarding as a good game of Murktide. Although, rather than dither on these 2 decks, I think maybe we should cut to the chase, and I think that Dave's nomination of 4-color Yorion is probably the most accurate one. It was the one that was most influential on the meta. It was the one that was, so powerful and popular that, Yorion finally had to go. It really was a warping element that I think allowed decks like 5-color Creativity to even be on this list in the first place. And I think it's probably all of the things we were talking about before, format knowledge, game plan development, all of those things went into playing this deck well as well.
I accept your vote. Thank you for joining Team Rational.
I'm not sure if we're going to be unanimous on this one. I even think like Yorion like got worse when Yorion got banned. You know what I mean? So, and it didn't get banned because it was too good. That was never one of the stated reasons. It got banned for paper play.
Well, that's not entirely accurate either.
Listen, I believe everything Wizards of the Coast tells me blindly.
Okay. All right. So we have co-winners in let's say the ongoing power of Murktide and the former power of 4-color Yorion Control. So we can move on from this category. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Honorable mention.
But what's our favorite? What's our favorite deck?
It's obvious, right? We're the Rhino
obvious
boys.
For 2 of us. Yeah. We love them rhinos.
Well, you guys are the Rhino boys.
Yeah, that's fine. You're a Rhino friend.
I am a Rhino ally.
What's your favorite deck of the year, Dave?
Honestly, my favorite deck to play of the year was probably Is It Phoenix and Pioneer was the thing I had the most fun doing this year, personally.
Fun is very important, Dave.
Yeah,
it is a game.
I really enjoyed Mono Blue Spirits and Pioneer as well, and a little bit in Explorer. And then if you're looking at Modern, it was definitely Scam was my favorite deck to play in Scam. But I think Quality of Life, like the stuff that I went back to the most to just play to have fun and never get that good at is It Phoenix and Pioneer when we were doing that back on the way into DreamHack.
I will say though, although my results don't demonstrate this, like I actually love playing Murktide. I just suck at it. I had like one good Murktide tournament and the rest have been painful, but it's the deck I wish I was better at because it scratches all my itches. But I guess for now we'll just have to play the Horn Dogs.
You can always try next year. You can always play it some more.
Do you think there were overhyped cards this year? Cards that seemed really exciting during spoiler seasons that
they were
ended
overhyped
up being
by us.
Nothing burgers.
Now, here's the thing. Who do you think was able to recall more overhyped cards than anyone else of the 3 of us? Who do you think has the longest list of nominees?
That's only because I did my
Who
list
do you think
first.
loves busting hype? Who loves busting hype more than anyone else on this podcast?
Is it me?
Shane? Yeah, it's you.
Well, I mean, I feel like these would have got on the list by somebody. Here are my nominees for overhyped card of the year. Woodcaller Automaton. Supposed to make Mono Green Devotion nearly unbeatable, be people clamoring for a ban. I think other pieces have already done more for the deck. Founding the Third Path, I barely remember what people were trying to do with this card. I remember them like spiking a little bit and being something that like people were really trying to like build around, and now I think it's essentially nowhere. Phoenix Chick is not something that's important to even the Pioneer metagame. It is cute though. Ob Nixilis the Adversary. We all know what people so this, instantly is this going to be banned in standard? Is this too OP even in modern?
We said this. We had an episode where some of us were like, this card is really good.
Really? Did we?
Never heard from him again.
Did I say that?
I said some of us.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I knew that Ob Nixilis was overhyped as soon as I started seeing comparisons to Oko, and that's when I knew like people beat Cray. It's just like anytime you evoke the strongest card of literal all time, there's no way that anything new is going to meet that threshold.
To cut myself a little slack, well, I did think it was a good card. I did not compare it to Oko.
Yeah, that's fair. Luxior, Giada's Gift, supposed to reinvigorate creature infinite mana combo. It did not. Liliana of the Veil, getting printed into Pioneer. It's not even played there. Am I right?
This one's heartbreaking.
Man, the days of Liliana are truly over. Finally, last on my list, at least, is Lion Sash. Mm-hmm. A card that, we're making comparisons to
Scavenging Ooze.
What's the green one? Scavenging Ooze, and just being like an overall utility piece. And maybe it's just, the Thunder got stolen by the unlicensed hearse. But yeah, it's not a thing.
Yeah, I think with Lion Sash, it just turned out to be fetching a proactive card with your Stoneforge Mystic is going to be better than like trying to interact with opponents' graveyards. That's my hunch. Turns out. Regarding Liliana of the Veil, first of all, killer shout. Like, so overhyped. Not great in Pioneer, unfortunately. Though we all, I think, would have loved it to be at least playable. This is, for me, like Exhibit A for my controversial recommendation from a couple weeks ago when I was like, let's just put Remand and Cryptic Command in Pioneer. Like, how bad could they be? Or how good can they be? Maybe they won't be. Maybe they won't even be that good.
True.
All right, I have a couple additions to Shane's list. I think there are several oversights. Reality Chip. Remember how scared people were of Reality Chip drawing all the cards? And
kind of.
It almost immediately turned Hammer into a blue deck. And there was that one NRG where I actually got to talk to Will Kruger, and he said, this is after he won the Mox. He was like, yeah, I'm playing Hammer.
So I don't even know why this is in my deck.
I don't even know why this is in my deck. And people are still playing Blue Hammer, and they're not playing Reality Chip. They're just like playing Spell Pierce and sideboard cards.
I was going to say, it turns out the real secret sauce for Blue Hammer was just Spell Pierce. That's really all.
How about Hidetsugu Consumes All?
I mean, that was during the Luris metagame, but that was a huge, like, $15 hype card for sure.
Yes.
I will say, when I was playing Scam and DreamHack, I had a Hidetsugu Consumes All on my sideboard.
Oh, yeah.
In Scam. And it was great against the Asmo food deck that I got paired up against, where it just cleared their entire board, saga tokens, food tokens, everything all at once. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, look, the card is fine. I think people just thought it was bonkers bananas, and it's just kind of like very normal and average, which is, I think, true of this next card on my list, Temporary Lockdown, which is like this new white removal spell that people were pretty nervous about because everyone hates sweepers.
I was
just like, whatever.
This was on my list. This was on my list of cards that I thought were going to be game changing.
Yeah. And here's my last big hot take. I feel like Brothers War in general, while it's still fresh, like not as impactful as maybe we expected, like this artifact set full of big robots to be. Time may prove me wrong, but like I'm not necessarily seeing like Brothers War decks emerge. I'm just seeing like maybe a handful of cards here and there like continue to get tested, but not really take over anything.
I fully agree. I mean, I think Teferi from the set could be on that list as as one of the cards that we thought was pretty good. That has not been showing up anywhere. Stan, you have Arcane Proxy written down here. That doesn't seem to really be a thing. Although I still see some people running it in Rhinos, but it does keep coming back to like why?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? I don't know. It's too bad. I've enjoyed opening that set, but the best cards I've gotten out of it are 2 copies of Mox Amber.
Yeah.
Hey, don't you already have 4?
I now have 5.
Oh, okay.
I had 3. You don't need 4 to play anyway.
Yeah, go get those over to me. I need some Mox Ambers one of these days. So what's our pick here? We're hilariously running out of time quickly. So I think we need to pick up our pace.
We don't need to pick up our pace, but we do need to agree on this card. And the card is Obnixilis, the Adversary.
Okay, that's where I was. That's where 100%. I was going. That's where I was going to.
It's the only one on this list that was really called for people. There was like 10 days of Adversary panic on Twitter. And, like I said, I fell for it a little bit. I played it some in Modern and in Pioneer, I think, but definitely in Modern. I was like, this could be good. And then it just was not even really close.
I'll defer to you guys on this one and abstain from voting altogether.
Okay, so Stan picks all the Brothers War, and we pick Obnixilis.
Right. Obnixilis it is. Obnixilis we Pixelis.
Gosh. What about, instead of overhyped cards, let's talk about underhyped cards. What did we miss on the most in 2022? And I feel like it's a short list, but it's an embarrassing one.
Yes.
Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Ledger Shredder, and I'm going to go on record for myself with Unlicensed Hearse. Stan was into it. I think I definitely was not, and I was very wrong. So what are we going to pick here? Is it, Ledger Shredder or Fable?
I mean, based on the rules of this little cinematic universe we've created this episode, it has to be Fable since it's also our card of the year.
You're right.
Right.
And I don't remember us talking about it at all.
No, I think we, or at least for me, I remember my thinking was the Kiki side isn't as good as Kiki, and it takes a while to get there, so it's not worth it. And it was a complete oversight that the card does other stuff, and making
other
copies
chapters
can be good even if they're not going to go infinite all of a sudden.
As I said, on episode 200, I skimmed over the text of that card and just said, I sent it back. I said, if it doesn't have a creature attached to it, I send it back. It's just, I didn't even comprehend what the card did. I don't think I read it fully until people were suddenly like, yeah, this card is great.
Yeah. And look, you know what? I'm happy that it is great. I want cards to be good and playable. There you have it.
That's true.
And make an impact in eternal formats.
Please. Now, were there decks that you guys hated playing against this year? Maybe you still do. Like, I play a lot of leagues, and I can tell you, anytime someone casts a Risen Reef against me, and I don't have a removal spell in my hand immediately, I'm just like hovering over the concede match button.
So for me, it's a deck I hated playing against, but also I hated what it became, and that's Mono Green Devotion. Mono Green, what used to be called Mono Green Planeswalkers in Pioneer. And that was my favorite deck. Like I loved doing the thing and creating a lot of mana and doing like Nissa Who Shakes the World stuff and sort of having like the interactive piece of like the Hydra. And now it turned into a over the top board filling gigantic collected company deck with combination planeswalker elements that can win the game with a somewhat convoluted convo, getting stuff out of like exile zones. And that's not the mono green devotion I knew 3 years ago. And I don't like what that deck became. I also don't like how much it sort of was a presence in the format and had so much discussion and dithering about it. And it really just became like a lightning rod for what people saw as wrong about the format when there's so much that is right, I think, in terms of like what the format's trying to be. And so that's kind of my main pick for deck I hated playing against. But I mean, Abzan Greasefang and Merfolk are also up there just for like the decks I don't like existing. Sorry, Merfolk fans. That's really kind of more tongue in cheek than Merfolk thing, but I just wanted to put it on the list.
How about you, Dave?
I really only have two entries into this list, I guess. Everybody hates Mono Green Devotion. All the people who don't play it hate it.
Even the
We're just
people
not
who
those
do.
kind of gamers, you know? Even the people who do play, a lot of them hate it too. So that's fine. That's like the compulsory add to the list. For me, I don't think this one will be a surprise to anybody. My most hated deck of 2022 was Creativity.
Oh.
Because it's a deck that I experimented with when it started to get a little bit of hype, was completely perplexed by it, couldn't do anything with it. Then it went on to become one of the best decks in Modern for a small stretch there. I picked it back up, still couldn't make it do anything. So I hate that deck.
Stanislav?
Yeah, the Mono Green Devotion obviously sucks to play against. I really do generally hate it playing against Risen Reef decks just because I think the effect Risen Reef has on pitch elementals is absurd. I think cards should work as they are written. But I'll actually point out that like Scam really sucks to play against too. Sometimes. Sometimes they...
Do you hate that it exists though?
No, I don't hate that it exists. I actually think it's fine that it exists. But it's like one of those decks that like if they turn one double grief you don't really shrug that off. Like it does you never go like, oh,
Yeah.
whatever, this is fine. Like it hurts and it feels unfair and it feels like you need to draw all the right spells to like regain parity and then once you do regain parity, maybe you can actually like turn the game around. But that the turn one grief play in particular just is so painful to have to endure.
So what's our pick here? Is it just kind of the standard Mono Green Devotion? We don't like what it became. We don't like what it is.
I mean, I never liked it. I didn't like it when it had Nissa Who Shakes the World, and I hate that card
oh man,
too.
that card was great. But yeah, it's just an evolution of an already busted deck.
All I'll say about this deck is that it should not have a combo in it. Just like get rid of the combo. Let
Yes.
it be a good deck that doesn't like beat all the interaction just because it happened to draw a Karn and a Kiora and a Nykthos at the same time.
Right. All right.
All right, hated cards. Let's do this fast. These are personal. We're going to do personal picks from here out.
All
Hated
right.
cards.
I struggled on this. My most hated card of the year, Blacksmith Skill.
How? Why? This is the craziest answer.
It's
No,
so
Shane,
so good.
This is a really good pick. I mean it. I think this is a really
It's
great
so
pick.
good.
It always gets you by
Any
surprise.
permanent. It can protect against what the opponent's trying to do to their cards.
Yes.
It's just so good and so efficient. And it just gives Hammer such a level of protection that they didn't have before. And I'm just, it's my most hated card. That's it. I mean, is it my really most hated card? Probably not. Is it the card that immediately sprang to mind? Yes.
That's so funny to me. For some reason. Stan, what's on your list?
I have a three-way tie between Flusterstorm, Engineered Explosives, and Breach. Storm and Explosives because they exist to ruin my day, but Breach because you'll think you did your thing and you think you bought yourself some time, and then they have like just 3 mana up maybe, and they cast Breach, and suddenly they go off and draw 7 cards or win on the spot. And it's like Breach sacrificing at the end of the turn actually is flavor text.
Mine's Yorian.
Yeah.
No surprise there. That was the card. Actually, you know what my second least favorite card is? Abundant Growth.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Let me tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because everybody was convinced that Abundant Growth was still going to see play after Yorian was gone. All the people who were like, Yorian is still going to... These decks can't work without 80 card mana bases. Da-da-da-da-da. We still need Abundant Growth. That card's just gone now. It's fine. It's gone.
All right. I think we won't have a most unanimous, although I do hate Engineering Explosives. This is one that I thought up for this year, and it is Product of the Year. And there's a boatload of products, but I think the ones that I think were really good in different ways, and one is Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, which I think was both like a really flavorful sort of reinvention and reimagination of the like Kamigawa in the future. It was a really loved limited set, and it gave us a bundle of useful cards to Pioneer and Modern. Double Masters 2022 with a number of solid reprints always helps keep prices down. I always appreciate that. Some really cool art for like the extended art Season Pyromancer, and just to counteract Stan's earlier point of Brothers War, I think it's an interesting set. I think it has a solid impact on our formats, a number of useful cards. But in comparison to Kamigawa, I think it's already off my list, even after I type that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mine's a little different. This year, I bought my first secret layer that I've ever bought, and that was the Magic 30th Anniversary Advent Calendar.
I kind of wish I had bought this.
It was great. I enjoyed every day opening a 1-pack with one card in it, seeing what they picked out. I didn't read what cards were in the set before I opened it up, so I only knew a couple of the really headliner ones. Like I knew that Necropotence was in there. I knew that Chrome Mox was in there. It was just fun to see what they did with it, with the story, and it's great. There's a couple of cards in there that I will play out of it, like Arclight Phoenix is in it and Emery is in it. Like I played those. I will play those someday. The other ones, whatever, I'm just going to have them around. It was cool.
Nice. Agree with Shane that Neon Dynasty was the best standard set of the year, for sure. And, in the spirit of Dave throwing a curveball, I really like the Warhammer 40k Commander set, especially Gearson, Star, and Kellamore.
Weren't those really expensive?
I mean,
Did you get those?
They were pretty average priced for a Commander product, but there was a lot of markup because they were a pretty limited supply and there was a lot of hype. But, you can buy singles, and the singles were sweet with new art on old cards, as well as like really good new cards if you're interested in Commander. And I was very fortunate that I got to spoil one of the legends from the Teamer deck. And it's just like this guy named Gearson Starn. Yeah, it's Gearson Starn Kellamorph.
Right.
And he's got 3 auto stubs. And I actually built the deck, and I got the chance to play it a few times, and it's dope. And it just feels like my Commander deck that I love playing. So that's my personal pick. Finally, curveball, the Dive Down Rhino Boys t-shirt for best MTG apparel of the year with the bullet.
Thank you to Casey/Tower Slayer for that. It's certainly the most popular product on our store. Which means that we've sold like 4 copies.
Nice.
If you want some apparel from us and help donate us, work with us directly, support us directly, go to the store on thedivedown.com.
We haven't talked about the
Check
store
it out.
that much.
No, it's okay. We're not here just to sell products, but if you want to go get this shirt, if you want to go get some hats and stuff, the hats are nice. The shirt's exceptionally nice. Thedivedown.com/store.
We're not just here to sell products. We're also here for the marketplace of ideas.
Exactly. We're selling ideas.
Okay, so we recorded about 50 episodes this year, not including bonuses. Do any episodes stand out for you guys as one of your favorites to make or just listen back to? What's going on the greatest hits from 2022?
I mean, real funny, a real short one that I thought was funny is the infamous episode 178, where I told a certain deck and certain states to get effed, and people seem to go wild for that. It was one of the first times we had a host beeped in an episode, and it was a bit I had for a couple episodes, and we let it go now. But that was something that I thought was funny when I was looking back at the year.
Just hearing Dad swear is so odd. It's like watching an elephant wear pants.
As long as they don't do it all the time, it can get cringe pretty fast.
Yeah. Stanislav, what are you thinking about when you think about fun episodes that you liked?
So the Living End deck dive we did with CCR, I think, is just one of the best deck dive episodes we've ever done. Period.
Tour de force. All thanks to Chris.
I'm so glad it's an episode that I wasn't on.
Yeah, me too.
That you guys loved this year. It's one that I wasn't here for.
Would not have been as good if Dave was here.
It combined the powers of us guiding conversation and Chris telling us how to be good at Living End. It was perfect.
Yeah, and Chris is a podcaster that I've looked up to for a really long time. So the chance to actually work with him on something just met all expectations. So thank you, CCR. And I do stand by that episode for sure. And likewise, 200 cards, I think, is an all-timer.
That's a fun one. It was a fun one.
It was so fun. Weirdly evergreen.
You think so? You think forever?
Forever. It'll outlive us all.
I like some of I like the People's Meta episodes. People always seem to like those as well. They're fun to do. They're fun to talk about just kind of what's going on in the wider world of Modern and Pioneer. And so I really enjoy doing those, especially the post-ban ones, like when we had Luris get banned and the format changed pretty significantly. Being able to analyze that together is always a blast. And Dave does so much work for them. I always appreciate that.
That was an episode that Stan wasn't on, the Luris one, so take that. My favorite other episode, full episode, other than where I just got to say a funny swear word, was the Saffron Olive interview. Was one of the ones that was the most, I don't know. Seth was just a cool guy. He was great to talk to, really nice guy. Interesting to hear what he had to say about making content.
An episode I was not on.
Yeah, well... Now you see how Dive Down's going to work in Cycle 2.0 with Stan overseas. It's going to be us just two people with a guest over and over again.
Just making iconic episodes for eternity.
It'll be perfect.
Nonstop iconic episodes with guests like Darth Jason, Zach Ryle, Jesse Robkin, Aspiring Spike, Chris Kesher-Rappel, Todd Anderson, Saffron Olive, Dom Harvey, Michael Rapp, Eli Cassis, Carolyn Cavanaugh, and Spider Space. Those are the guests we had on this year.
That's like one a month. That's one a month. I went back. I really hope I got everybody.
All right, let's name names.
So Zach Allen.
everybody.
Zach Allen. Don't forget Zach Allen.
Oh, Zach Allen.
Yep.
Yeah, Zach Allen was on too. Yep.
Let's name names. Can we name names? Who was the worst guest?
Oh, come on.
Probably me.
You. Yeah. Exactly.
No, this is, big thanks to all the people who agree to come on this podcast, as often as they do. I don't know how we rope them into it, because they're always better players. They're always more accomplished, frequently better on mic. And so thanks to all guests from 2022. And we hope we can have many of you back on next year.
We did thank the guests, but we should, of course, thank our listeners as well. That kept us going. The patrons who support the show. You keep the lights on. The people who leave friendly comments on our YouTubes, on our Reddit posts, in our Twitter threads, in the episode reviews. You guys are the wind beneath our wings. Obviously, the Dive Down Nation in our Discord, keeping us company all day while we should be working on expense reports. Instead, we're chatting about
4 years of this nonsense.
God of War.
4 years. This is 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years lost to Discord, but would we have been doing anything more productive? I doubt it. So thank you. Thank you to all the fans, friends, listeners, and adversaries who hate listen to the show. Your download is still good to us, and we're excited to keep making content for you next year, even though I will be now in something called GMT. Zero. GMT is the zero time zone, center of the world, maybe even center of the universe. In any case, I think that wraps up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. If you'd like to submit a question to our podcast, just reach out in general. You can find us on Twitter at The Dive Down, all one word, or email thedivedown@gmail.com. A lot of ways to support the show these days. You can do so over at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can support us while playing Magic Online with the Mana Trader subscription using promo code THEDIVEDOWN10. That's the number 10, all one word, for 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards. Also get some amazing shaving soaps, body soaps, fragrances, and more over at Barrister & Mann using promo code THEDIVEDOWN15. That's the number 15, all one word, gets you 15% off your first order from Barrister & Mann. You can save some money on paper cards as well over at Nerd Rage Gaming with code DIVE8 for 8% off your order from NRG. And check out our swag over at thedivedown.com. Go there directly, divedown.com/store, or find the store in the nav bar at the top of thedivedown.com. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and have a happy holiday.